So when you log into UiPath Orchestrator, this is what you're going to see. It's a very busy screen, and I wouldn't call it intuitive. And that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. For example, what is a tenant? There are so many windows and tabs, and we have to learn what do they all mean, how are they connected, how are they useful in reality, and how can we internalize the functionalities of such a seemingly complicated system. And so we'll try and walk through that in a way that you can relate to as a novice during this class. I will be breaking them up into small units so you don't get too overwhelmed, say 10 or 15 minutes, but there's a lot to cover, so we'll get right into it. How do you get to this screen? You go to cloud.uipath.com and you log in. And of course, if you've never done this before, it means you have to open an account, which is not the subject of this video, but I'm just going to log in here. So when you log in, you're going to, you probably have a number of accounts. I'm going to take this one, depending on what you've done. And you'll see a similar screen to we're not quite there yet. So you have this layout. If this is the first time you're doing it, you click on this button to download Studio. But again, I digress. The second icon on your left is the one you're looking for to get to Orchestrator. You hit that. Once you click it, I'm sorry, I have to move this widget away from here. Yeah, so you click that, and then the same window that I had opened a moment ago opens, right? Something similar. And so here we are at the Orchestrator. And like I said, a lot of things to go through. So let's look at this from a more detailed perspective. Like I said, what is a tenant? What is home? What's in automations? Each time you click this, there's something to explore, right? And we want to sort of go through it and try and make sense out of it. Inside my folders, you have your workspace, and all of them are a bit different from what's up here in the tenants. They're like subfolders, right? So a simplified way to look at it is that maybe this tenant is like the whole of your organization, and then these are like departments. That's an oversimplified way of looking at it. So we'll go through it and try to see how we can make you more comfortable with the concepts over the course of this presentation. Before I start, I'd like to go over the UiPath ecosystem, just so that for those who are like a bit novice-y about this, not so familiar with it, they can have some context to help their perspective of things. So the UiPath ecosystem it comprises of three things: the UiPath Studio, the UiPath Orchestrator, and the UiPath Robot, or more practically the UiPath Assistant, right? So what is the UiPath Studio? If you've already downloaded Studio, that's the integrated development environment where you develop your automations, where you build your automations. Again, that's not the subject of this class, so we're not going to talk about that. I'm just going to open an existing project. This is what it's like. Now, when you build your automation on the computer level, on the desktop level, you are doing that because you're developing something that will be used organization-wide. Let me put it like this. As long as this robot, this thing that I'm looking at right now, this is an automation I built to perform certain functions, right? As long as it remains on this computer, I can only use it on this computer. In other words, if I pressed play now to run this file, I have to wait because it's a foreground process. It needs to interact with the UI in certain instances. I have to wait until it's finished before I can use this computer for anything else. And so, if it's working, I can't be working. Now imagine if I had 100 other robots like this on this computer. I'd have to press each of them one by one whenever I need them. Press play. I'll wait for it to run and finish. When it's done, I'll press the next one, and so on and so forth, so on and so forth, which is not pragmatic. It's not practical, right? And that's kind of where the orchestrator comes in. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about this in the future, but the idea is that this robot remains on my desktop, only usable on my desktop, unless I hit this publish button right here, the publish command. When I do that, this dialog box is going to pop up and say, what's the version name? If you have any other tags you want to put in, or release notes. I don't really want to do that. It's not necessary. So if it's the first time you're publishing it, you might put something like, oh, first release. Second time, you might put notes about, oh, I adjusted this and that's what's different. But again, those are deeper subjects for another day. When you've done that, you could either publish it to the tenant level, which I showed you up there just a few moments ago. That's the organization level, or your personal workspace. It's up to you. It's not a major concern at this time. And then, if there's more, if you want to put a certificate, which is not like super important, you can hit publish. It's not going to stop it from functioning. So when you do that, it's going to end up inside the orchestrator, right? And then that's how the two of them are connected. But what is orchestrator, right? What is orchestrator? We'll talk about at length. But on a definition level, the blue UiPath Studio I showed you is the place where you build the robots. You use drag and drop widgets to program the computer to perform certain tasks according to user specifications that you got, or user requirements. Once you've done that, you publish it to orchestrator. What does the orchestrator do? It's like a control room, right? And does a lot of things, among which are some of these functions listed here, like release management. Like, if you remember just a few moments ago, I was about to publish something to the orchestrator. That's called a release, when you publish an automation to the orchestrator, right? So it kind of keeps record of all the releases you publish to the orchestrator. The assumption is that there'll be certain differences between each release. Maybe you're improving the functionality or something like that. Then it also does centralized logging, which keeps record of the things that happen as the robots are running. Then you can use it for reporting, auditing, and monitoring. You can, like a remote control, you can use it. When I say remote control, I'm referring to some of the last two bullet points here. You can schedule a robot in advance to run. For example, say at 8 a.m., then another run at 12 noon, then another run at 3 p.m. You can schedule that. You can schedule to run every 30 minutes. You can schedule multiple robots to run at different times throughout the day, right? From the orchestrator. That's where you get that done. And the last thing is queue and robot management. Now, each robot will typically have a queue. It's best practice that each transaction there are different types of automations, right? But every single transaction, you have like a queue item. Like you might have 100 items to process, right? And somebody's got to make sure that each item in your queue is run on time, and whatever happened, whether it was successful or not successful, if there were exceptions, everything is kept. Records of that are kept, right? The control room or orchestrator is what does that. The same thing for robots. Robot management would, for example, apply in an instance where maybe I had 100 different robots, right, to do different things for the firm. Somebody's got to figure out, okay, we have things called service level agreements. For example, maybe by 8 a.m. a certain task has to be done. Therefore, the robot must have run maybe at 6 a.m. in the morning to make sure that all the transactions required for that task to be done are completed by 8 a.m., right? So somebody's got to set up a schedule and get that done. But then, what about the other 99 robots? They are all important. What time do they have to be done by, And am I going to have to get 100 different computers? Or is there a way I can manage one computer to run 25 of those robots over the course of the next 24 hours, Is there a way? And I have to schedule it by time or by queue item to make sure that happens. So that instead of needing 100 computers to run 100 computers to run 100 robots I might need just 4 computers because I can get one computer to do 25 robots over the course of a day. Just as an example, right? So it can get complicated the higher the number of robots you have. And these are some of the benefits of Orchestrator, which we'll talk more about. The third item is the UiPath robot. That's what actually does the jobs. Like, I've programmed something to happen here, right? Whatever the task is. But when I hit play, something runs the job, makes, sort of interprets this into action. All the stuff I put in this integrated development environment. Something interprets it and takes action based on what's there. And that is called the UiPath Assistant. And that's what it looks like. So those 3 things together form the UiPath ecosystem. And, that's like a foundational level of understanding you have to have before we go further. So I'll see you in the next module to discuss the UiPath Orchestrator further. Thank you for watching.